So if you don't know what a VTuber is, chances are you've never touched an anime in your life, and never had to explain to your parents why an anime girl's breasts are shooting armor-piercing 16-inch shells, fully well knowing your luck had run out and this was the only scene in the entire anime to have such a depraved act. And the usual episodes are like Animal Crossing. Or maybe you just haven't come across the many fan accounts uploading videos of their favourite VTuber saying the most out of context explicit dialogue. Or it's a clip of their VTuber showing off body parts of their 3D model.
I feel like it's been a while since I really showed off the thighs. Go ahead, give me all the rubs you can manage.
Like their feet. Yes, they exist. Could be worse. You could be French.
French!
I mean, most VTubers doing that are indie VTubers anyway. And there are only two types of VTubers. You have the agency VTubers who are backed by an agency and a bigger company, and then you have indie VTubers who are not held back by an agency and their rules and can say whatever they want and do whatever they want. Yes, and I mean whatever they want. But what are VTubers in general? Well, a VTuber is basically a 2D or 3D model controlled by a person, controlled by people using facial recognition, to control said model and its gestures. And before you get your hopes up, none of them probably actually look like their VTuber model. Just have to say that. Some of you probably pitched a tent already, but most VTubers like the ones in agencies, you will never ever see their face. And don't worry, it's not because they're an ugly homunculus and on the same levels as weeping angels. Probably not. Probably. It's because they're under a contract to not do certain things. And depending on the agency you've chose to be a VTuber for, it's either like you're a piece of meat in a sweatshop, or you actually have a decent company you're working for. But the advantage of being in an agency is kind of like instant success. They will take care of your schedule, what games you'll be playing, what other VTubers or people you'll be interacting with, most of your channel management and social media management, and a platform to force feed your opinion into the mouths of many. But they also take care of your debut, which both indie and agency VTubers have to do. It's basically where the fans of that agency that has all these amazing VTubers gets to know you, and the character you're displaying. And along with other details like your backstory, your age, your height, your butthole size, how many raccoons can fit up there. And yes, most VTubers have lore. Not like on the level of Lord of the Rings. Kinda like Naruto if you took out all the filler. Like popular VTuber Gawr Gura. Gura is a descendant of the lost city of Atlantis and is over 9,000 years old. 9,000 years old. And you want to know why her tail looks like that? Well, she got stuck in a ravine and had a bunch of rocks fall on her and she had to wiggle out. And I will tell you that is the most simplest and wholesome VTuber lore. The rest are an emo kid's fantasy. But agencies will mostly take care of you until you graduate. No, not the peak Kanye West album.
Good morning.
Graduation is for VTubers that either want to leave their agency, want to quit their job, don't want to be a VTuber anymore, or you've been a very, very bad VTuber. Because graduation is basically where they take your VTuber around back and fill it full of 12 gauge. And then bury the body to the point where no one will ever find it again. Because especially if you're with a VTuber agency, you will never be able to use that model again, not even reference it or speak to any of your other VTuber friends that are in the same agency. And you lose your platform and you basically have to start again, because the agency owned all of that. And most of the time these agencies won't even let you shout out your new channel if you're leaving. So you have to build yourself back up where most indie VTubers start. But the biggest reason why most people would be an indie VTuber is one, you have to audition to join an agency and basically land the role of the VTuber they have designed for you. 2, there is no profit sharing, meaning if I donate to a VTuber on YouTube, which I would never do, a majority of the time YouTube takes their 30% and the agency may take more, so by the time my money gets to that VTuber, it's probably mere pennies. And 3rd, most VTubers under an agency have to act a certain way, often taking up an entirely different persona from their own, and often can't convey their actual feelings towards their chat. Like so, they can't just say, everyone watching this video has unwashed foreskin, because they're under a contract and are employed by this agency. And most of them don't want to get graduated if they did. So a lot of them have to act like they like you. Kind of like that time the popular person asked you out as a joke. Just gonna let that one simmer. Did that bring up past trauma? Good. which is why most people opt to be indie VTubers, because there's a lot more freedom. Some of these VTuber agencies can be absolute hell. But most indie VTubers have to take care of their own reputation, own brand, their own damage control and rapport with fans, which has led to some terrible cases with indie VTubers. But we'll get into some of these terrible companies and terrible VTubers later. But I have a confession to make. I have a favourite VTuber. Whilst I'm not part of the VTuber community, I actually do have a VTuber I quite like. And I'm going to give you a sec to guess who it is, so I can ridicule you for getting it wrong, because in all honesty, a majority of people are going to get it wrong. You submitted your answer? You dum-dum. My favourite VTuber is Rin Penrose.
Okay, fine, I'll admit it. I do have a tendency to complain a lot. The accent doesn't help.
I honestly can't wait to ridicule you for getting it wrong. Anyway, I know what you're thinking. It's not because they're a British VTuber. Okay, partially it's because they're British. You colonies would not understand. We have to keep the British monarchy going. But I actually quite like them because they actually sound like a British person. Not an aristocratic asshole, or an obnoxious fentanyl-filled caveman like the majority of Manchester. Or decimated by the concept of an American thinking what a British person sounds like. No, they are quite literally your average Brit. Probably have jagged teeth though.
Sound out the song of splendor.
But I also got into the VTuber community because I have a friend that's a VTuber. Take a look at this femboy. There are also male VTubers, by the way. They're not as popular as the female counterparts, but there's also femboy VTubers, if that's up your street. But just a heads up, they are significantly more explicit than any other type of VTuber.
You stopped, like, squeezing my ass as, like, a stress ball.
But VTubers can be found from anywhere from TikToks to YouTube Shorts to YouTube in general and the Twitch platform. A majority of them stream and upload short-form content, which is how I found Rin. I found them on YouTube Shorts, which is a platform that is slowly withering my brain away. But in VTuber terminology, although I don't know that much about the community, they would be considered my Urshi, which means to push your VTuber in ways of support. But me being a narcissist, I'd probably push them off a cliff. But what are these terrible agencies and terrible VTubers? An example of a terrible VTuber agency, which probably everyone from their mother to an Ethiopian child with no internet access has heard of, is nijisanji. Just hearing that name probably sent shivers through your testicles. Nijisanji, who have had a flame under their ass for the last few months now, and why? Well, unlike successful VTuber agencies like HoloLive,
Gura, my dog died. Let's go!
Very successful, they apparently don't know how to manage their talent well, or treat them like a decent human being. So what happened? Basically we had a VTuber by the name of Selen, and this is Selen, who had to revert back to her previous indie VTuber model, Dokibird. And in my opinion, it's an upgrade. But before she reverted back to being an indie VTuber, she absolutely dunked on her previous agency and exposed them for what they are. A mounting, flaming trash heap in the form of a sweatshop. It was basically a toxic workplace with harassment and bullying, to the point where the conditions were so deplorable and had such a severe effect on her mental health that she would try and harm herself and ended up in hospital. And on top of that, she went above and beyond for this company to entertain the fans. She would dip into her own pocket to pay for commissions for videos to entertain fans, which should have been a company expenditure, and made it so she made no profit whatsoever in 2023. But the equivalent of this situation is you went above and beyond for this company, only for them to bend you over a desk and conduct an unprompted colonoscopy. Because of the fact Dokibird was trying to publish videos for her fans that she was paying for, the company would not only take those videos down when she uploaded them, and because she didn't get permission from her corporate overlords, they would get their favourite Winchester Model 21 shotgun, and without even informing her, take her VTuber round back and fill it full of buckshot. And she would wake up to her friends telling her that she had been graduated without her knowing. No prompt, no email, no slap on the ass. She was donezo, and the company basically came out and said it was her own fault. She was breaking rules by trying to entertain her fans for the benefit of the audience and the company in general. But this is where it gets really interesting and quite funny. When Dokibird reverted to Dokibird, and the internet heard about this terrible company that affected her mental health so much, they turned into absolute doomslayers, taking an absolute big turd on the company and whilst doing so, supporting Dokibird with subscribers and donations on her stream to the point where she was making a profit now. And this would lead that company to scramble for a response to the point where they have to hijack one of their VTubers' streams and get some other fucking VTubers to apologise for them. Basically saying it was all a misunderstanding. For some reason it was formatted like a YouTuber apology, that they had the black screen. Some of the VTubers forcibly emptying their lungs with sighs. I don't know who I feel sorry for more. The people that had to watch it or the VTubers that got forced to do it. But they would essentially just say, not our fault. On a whole bunch of litigation regarding harassment and people's information being leaked would start heavily in Dokibird's favour. And what is really funny, Nijisanji is telling people to stop selling their stocks in the company because that ship dropped lower than my testicles in puberty. But one thing that really intrigued me about this, not the fact a VTuber agency is getting shat on, but it's how much she's changed from being an agency VTuber to an indie VTuber. Even she notices she's allowed to even make negative comments now.
Wait, I can say it now. In Pokemon! Sorry, my inner filter fucking kicked in.
But she's doing very well for herself, with an ever-evolving legal battle. But that is an example of a bad situation with a bad company that these idle VTubers have to endure. Now for the indie VTubers. Most indie VTubers behave kind of like the agency VTubers, as I've mentioned before, except for the fact they have a lot more freedom and can say what they want and do what they want, which has led to some VTubers being more NSFW. I'm talking full cock, full mahonga dongas. Some VTubers having wardrobe malfunctions, which you wouldn't expect an agency VTuber to have a nude avatar version of themselves, and sometimes they intentionally do it. Like the VTuber Marina that misunderstood the TOS of Twitch update and did a full stream in a nude avatar. And then when people in the chat were telling her, you know, you're gonna get banned, right? She was mocking them and then got banned. Or another good example is Projekt Melody, who originally garnered popularity through her explicit personality, and the fact she was on Chatterbait with a remote control RCXD up her HDMI port, and every time someone donated or put some tokens in the chat, the genital blender would start and, you know, you can probably guess what happened next. But she was probably one of the first VTubers to do this. And as I said, it got a lot of attention. She was discovering a whole new way of being a VTuber. But now she got signed with the VTuber agency VShoujo, and has significantly dialed it back, but she's still getting blended every now and again. But overall, indie VTubers have it quite hard, and you basically have to stand out in a crowd just to get viewers. Some VTubers have done this by voicing their political opinions, almost I say virtue signalling, like the case with Aurora, where she was saying statements which most people agree with anyway, and somewhat fear-mongering, but indie VTubers definitely have it harder, in the way they have to gather their own audience. Whilst agency VTubers do kind of get that interest beforehand, but I do see why some indie VTubers would do this. It's really hard to make yourself stand out in a sea of anime girls. So some, not all of them, tend to the NSFW side, or the personalities like that anyway, and they have a lot more freedom to express themselves. But in terms of indie VTubers and agency VTubers, both have their struggles, and both are quite neat. Even if one of the VTubers I can turn their genitals into mincemeat just by donating, that is unfortunately still entertainment. And as always, one VTuber does not define what all VTubers are like, or what one VTuber agency is like for the rest. But I can see how people view indie VTubers and agency VTubers as entertaining, from things they can do to their VTuber model that most Twitch streamers won't even get out of their chair for, or just creating concerts and small events for their fans, or introducing a new model to their community, or doing whatever Fillion is doing, which is causing internal brain damage every day, I think. But that's basically what a VTuber is and the potential problems they face. That's it. Bye-bye.